Alright guys, so I'm trying something new today. I've done top 10 lists before. Normally they're edited and much like less lazy than this, but I was like, oh, there's a list maker that I can find. And with stuff like this, I just wanted to make quick top 10s, and don't point the fingers at me. Alright, don't point the fingers at me. Anyways, let me preface. The reason I'm making this list is because I beat Spider-Man 2 recently. I did a whole playthrough. It's on the channel. You can go watch it. Huge Spider-Man fan. Actually, huge comic fan. But I was trying to figure out reasons for me to do these top 10s relating to these characters, like with Spider-Man, with Batman, or whatever. And because I did Spider-Man 2, I finally had an excuse to do a Spider-Man top 10 list on the villains, which is something I've been trying to do for a long time actually, but I was like, it'd be a little random, especially since I don't do MCU stuff anymore. Like, I don't react to the trailers or anything because I don't care anymore, to be honest. I don't think most people do. So I was like, hey, since I beat Spider-Man 2, now I can do this list. And I didn't really want to, because in retrospect, they're just top 10 lists. Do they gotta have a bunch of different, you know, like animation, like, I don't know, like clip of this, of them doing something in this animated series or this game or something? So I was like, you know what? And also I wanted them to just be quick. I'm like, dude, same thing with tier lists. Like, tier lists should be longer than top 10 lists, and even then they should all be short. Like, just get straight to the point. I mean, you guys can see half the list already. You guys can already see half the list. I'm like, you're just here to see it. We don't gotta make this a long thing. Anyways, I already spent 2 minutes, which is ironic, considering I said I don't want to make these long. But just so you know, my top 10 list might be like this from now on, because I just think it makes more sense. Like, it's just meant to be quick. Like, I'm putting a video out, I have an idea, I want this to be quick, top 10 of this, and I was like, sometimes some things just work better as like top 10s, top 5s. And they don't really work as tier lists. Like, I'm not gonna do a tier list of all of Spider-Man's villains. It's gonna take forever, and then we're gonna get to like people that I don't care about, like the Chameleon. That guy's real, right? Yeah, the dude that can like that. I don't care about that guy. I'm not tiering him. I don't care. So I'm like, top 10. There you go. All right, number 10, Mysterio. Magic. I mean, to be honest, the Far From Home made me. It made me go like, you know, cooler. I think my favorite Mysterio is Spectacular Spider-Man, because he's funny. Because if you've seen the show and you hear how he sounds pretty funny. That's basically it. I know there's some ones where Mysterio can be like really cool and like intense of a villain, yada yada. In Spider-Man 2, he was in there, but we didn't really get to see him do much of anything actually. But yeah, it just made sense. I was like, number 10 spot, I was like, yeah, Mysterio makes sense. I feel like when Mysterio does things, it's either really like overdone, like I'm like, wait, Mysterio's not that good, or it's just super downplayed, and I'm like, I don't really care. And then Spidey sense, I mean, come on, it just negates the whole thing. All right, Sandman is probably my favorite of like the villains that Spidey probably fights like once a week. You know what I mean? So like the Vulture, he probably fights Scorpion, he probably fights continuously. Maybe not Vulture, but because of the reasoning. But like Sandman is probably my favorite next to the guy up here, which is Electro, and that's just because of powers, honestly, and even personality. Jamie Foxx did a great job with this character, which is why I put him here. This is my favorite version of Electro, more specifically when he showed up in the MCU. That's my favorite version. Yeah, I don't know, I like Electro a lot. Sandman, we haven't, like, Sandman's cool. Again, I feel like Spectacular Sandman, like Spectacular Spider-Man Sandman is probably the one I think of the most. But I really like this. I really like Sandman. I feel like there's a version of Sandman that I can say I like. When Mysterio, I'm just kind of like, it's Mysterio, who cares? Electro, yeah, Electro's sick. Then we got Black Cat. And sorry, I forgot. I was like scrolling up and I was like, uh-oh. Then we got Black Cat. Makes sense. I didn't want to put her too high because I was like, I have a weird thing with these like femme fatale villains, I'm like, they're not really villains. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, they're not really villains. Like this or Venom. Come on. I mean, like, it's a different story. Venom, maybe Venom was a bad example because Venom's really, really a huge problem. But like this or Doc Ock. I'm like, come on, bro. No, you're not villain. You're not like a villain. You know what I mean? Like Electro or Sandman will be at his throat. Like she'll be like in his head, like rent free. You know what I mean? Which is it's different. It's different. But I really like Black Cat. I just can't put her really higher, to be honest. And then number 6, I got Lizard. Yeah, I think for some people Lizard isn't like top 5. Or actually he's either overrated or underrated. I feel like this is where he should be. He should be in the middle of the list of a top 10, because I'll be honest, every time Lizard does his thing, like in the story, like every time Lizard is like, there's a comic run with him, you always realize like, oh, he's a problem. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like Sandman. It's weird. Even though realistically what his abilities are just he's a lizard, it's always like he causes way more problems than if like half the Sinister Six was fighting Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? Which also, on topic, Insomniac also made it kind of like that, because I'll be honest, when you fight him in Spider-Man 2, which is the version I have here, he's intense, bro. This guy is nuts, you know? So it kind of just, I don't know, it's always one of those things where like, and plus Dr. Connors, it's a cool dynamic. It's a cool dynamic. I feel like I like the idea, like, this is like, out of all the villains so far, this is the one that Peter has like it's a victim, you know what I mean? Like, and he's trying to help them, you know? I guess you can argue Max here with Electro is also kind of like that, but sometimes they do that and sometimes they don't. The Amazing Spider-Man, they did that more. I think Spectacular Spider-Man, they also had the same kind of storyline, but yeah, he kind of, you know, he was an electrician and then he turned into it again. This is like dicey stuff, you know. At least he's in control, like he's conscious though. That's the thing. Yes, it's messing with the neurons in his mind. I guess that's normally what it is, but it's not as bad as Lizard. Let's be real. Like Lizard is like fully Dr. Connors is just not there. It's an animal and it's like, it's hard. It's a cool dynamic, the fights, because of that. And then number 5, I have Kingpin. Oh, wait, sorry. I got Kingpin. He's not what a lot of people think of when they think Spider-Man villains, but he is sick. He's super sick. I mean, we all love Kingpin as a villain. As a Spider-Man villain, should he be in the top 5? I'll be honest, probably not. But I'm putting him here anyways. I was like, you know what? I'll get away with this. I'll put him in the top 5 because I really love Kingpin. I really love Kingpin. And technically, he is a Spider-Man villain. He showed up in a Spider-Man comic as his introduction. Fun fact. So I'm pretty sure. And yes, he's more known as Daredevil's arch nemesis. But my guy, when he's there, causes problems. And I love them in the Amazing Spider-Man cartoon. And he's not bad in the Insomniac game. So, you know, I was like, yeah, let's just throw him in. All right, now the top 4. I think you have an idea who could be in the top 4. You guys definitely know who's in the top 3. But number 4, recently, Craven has been amazing. Craven's always been a good villain. But the weird thing about Craven is, right, it depends on what we're talking about. Because if you get into the comics and like the certain storylines, Craven is really, like, he's insane. But when you talk about, like, say, I mentioned this cartoon multiple times because it's amazing, it's goated. The Spectacular Spider-Man, Craven's not that crazy. Like, Craven's not that nuts. In fact, he's part of the Sinister Six, which is weird. Well, they have multiple renditions of the Sinister Six, but it's a little weird because, like, Craven's usually a bigger villain than some of those guys. So it's a bit strange. Like, I wouldn't put him at the same level as Sandman, you know what I mean? But he gets lumped in with Sandman and Mysterio, and you're like, okay, you know, and he's just kind of a hunter. He's sort of just a hunter. So, like, sometimes he's just a hunter. Other times he's a really, you know, he's like the Bane almost of Spider-Man in a weird way. He kind of is, especially in Spider-Man 2, which I kind of probably should have done that version of Craven, but I couldn't find a picture that looked, because in Spider-Man 2 he looks too much like a normal guy in some angles, so I couldn't find a good picture of him. But that's my favorite version, easily. of Craven. That's my favorite version. Spider-Man 2's Craven, incredible. I was like, this made me love this character. Like, I was like, oh my god, he almost made it to top 3, almost. But I was like, if you're making Spider-Man list of villains, your top 3, you can't. You absolutely cannot, take any of those 3 out. And you know which 3 I'm talking about. Now, the question is, what order do you put those 3 in? Usually number 1 is the same for everybody, out of respect for the character. But number 2 and number 3, you might be able to switch it around, which I might have done here. So number 3 is Doc Ock. Now, I know normally he's either number 2 or number 1 for a lot of people, but Doc Ock's always been the weakest one out of the 3 for me. I've never been super drawn to the character. I think it's a cool dynamic when you have Dr. Octavius, and like the dynamic between him and Spider-Man, and it's kind of like a mentorship, and it's wholesome. It's a bit wholesome when Peter is able to like connect with Octavius's humanity, and I think that's a very cool like storyline. The same idea as like how Lizard is cool, because there's a sense of like Peter is trying to rescue this man who has a family and people who love him. Doc Ock is almost like who Peter aspires to be, a famous scientist, and Doc Ock unfortunately puts himself in this situation, and Peter feels like he wants to save him. So it's a cool dynamic 100%, but I always feel like as a villain there's a sense of like I'm not scared the same way I am with the other 2, especially with number 2. Number 2 terrifies the hell out of me, and I'm just gonna jump right into it. Number 2 is Venom. Venom is, honestly, if I'm being real, I was so tempted to put him as number 1, but I was like, I would never, ever, I would lose all my cred. I would lose everything. Everybody would shun me if I put him as number 1. Because while Venom is awesome, he's not number 1. And for multiple reasons, though, because if you think about it, on a personal level, while the symbiote is as close to Peter as any other villain has been, I feel like there's a certain essence of what are you really fighting? You know what I mean? Which I feel like can be lost with Venom a bit, which is like at the end of the day, it is a symbiote. I feel like when it's Eddie Brock, it's definitely personal. Obviously in Spider-Man 2, it's not Eddie. I don't want to spoil who it is, but it is still personal. It's a personal level, but it always kind of feels like, again, like the same thing with Doc Ock, it's their mind is getting controlled, but it's almost like they've in some ways enabled it. I think Venom is more so like they've enabled it more. Well, I feel like number 1 is like fully enabled. Like number 1 leans into it. Number 2, which is Venom, is kind of like it's sort of, but it's still a parasite, and number 3 is Doc Ock, and that one's just a full-on like parasite. That thing latches on and messes with his brain completely. Venom is like that half and half. It's like they're okay with it at first. Like the host is almost kind of like giving into it, and then like it slowly becomes like, hey, they become more like less and less themselves, right? So I mean, this is why it feels like Venom at some point loses the personal aspect, and it just becomes this beast, right? And I mean that's cool, and Venom always scared me as a kid, but again, this is why I want to put him at number 1, but I can totally understand why number 1 should be Green Goblin. Number 1 should be Green Goblin. And I totally respect it. I totally respect it, because it doesn't matter if you're talking about Harry or Norman. It's usually Norman. It's always Norman Osborn. Norman, even when he is basically all there mentally, sort of all there, he wants Peter's demise. And by Peter, I mean Spider-Man. And there's always that thing where it's like, Peter Parker, he's Spider-Man. It's like this weird, I don't know why I did the John Jonah Jameson voice, but that was accidental. But no, I mean, I don't really have to go into it too much. I mean, he killed Gwen. That's almost basically like guaranteed number 1 forever. But at the same time, it's also there's a lot of levels to it because of Harry. There's like a certain sense of he's always gonna mean the most. Like the villain is always gonna be the most personal villain to Peter is always gonna be Green Goblin. So I have to put him at number 1. Number 1. Sorry, this is weird. Number 1. But that's the list. Lizard could definitely be higher for some people. I didn't obviously show any of the animals, so there's no rhino, no vulture, no scorpion. they're all great villains. They're fine. I just feel like they're usually like just, you know, Sinister Six candidates, and I mean the bottom three are Sinister Six candidates, but the thing with them is they're my favorite. They're my favorite of the bunch, you know, and that's why I put them here. But at some point, you know, the top six especially, it's riddled with big boss villains. You know, it's riddled with any of these villains could be the boss of a Spider-Man video game. Maybe not Lizard, actually. The top five. Yeah, I think the top five easily. All of these are like boss villain level characters for Spider-Man. Like if these guys are here, well, okay, maybe not Kingpin. If these guys are here, if any of these guys are here, you're like, where's Spider-Man? Where's Peter? You know, because he's got to be here. If any of these guys are here, he's got to be here. So yeah, that's my list. Let me know down below what your list would be. What you change if you disagree, then, and you definitely do disagree. Tell me where you guys disagree with. And if you like me doing top 10s and you like me doing comic content and Spider-Man content, then please like and subscribe. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Hope you guys have a good day. This is your friendly neighborhood YouTuber signing out. Have a good one. Take care. Peace and goodbye.